Mr. Mac awoke in a panic, his arms flailing in the air as if he were drowning, and his legs moved as if he were kicking his way to freedom. Calm began to slowly settle over him, and when he finally settled down, he sat in his bed and looked at the clock. In glowing red numbers, the clock read 3:33 a.m. While rubbing his eyes, he felt a dull, uncomfortable feeling in his pelvis. Well, when nature calls, you got to answer. Making his way back to his room, he wondered what time it was. Sitting on his bed, Mr. Mac looked at the clock, and in glowing red numbers, it read 3:33 a.m. I have to be up in a little while, so I might as well stay up. As he lay in bed, he thought to himself, let's see what's on the feed. 10 minutes into scrolling, Mr. Mac noticed a movement to the right of him. He brushed it off, believing it to be his eyes straining. When it happened again, it was not so easy to dismiss, as the figure not only moved, but darted across the room. Although his pulse was pounding and his mind was racing, he maintained a calm and unnerved demeanor. Mr. Mac slowly reached an arm under his pillow, inching his hand deeper into it until he felt the lukewarm handle. After properly securing the weapon in his hand, he began to retract his arm from under the pillow, stopping only when he felt the cool, air-conditioned breeze on his wrist. He put down his phone, allowing his eyes to adjust to the darkness. Breathe, Mac. Breathe, he thought. He took in a deep breath and sat up in his bed, moving his hand at an unsightly speed, and fired 2 shots. The first whizzing past the figure, and the second flying into and out of the figure's head, unbeknownst to Mr. Mac, but making it violently fall to the ground. Break into my house, Mac exclaimed. Let's get a good look at you before I call 911. Clapping his hands to make the lights turn on, the first thing that was noticeable was a large splat on the wall. It was a deep, dark blue color where it had thickened and a shimmering crystal blue where it had ran down. Mr. Mac gasped, and his heartbeat quickened and fell out of its rhythmic pulsing. Overwhelmed with confusion, he flung himself from the bed, struggling to gain balance on his feet. He began to walk toward the body, fighting back his own from convulsing with each step, leading closer to the heap of tattered black clothing and dark blue liquid pooling on the floor. Once he reached the feet of the body, he noticed movement. Slight, yet sporadic. He wondered if what he was seeing were the final breaths of a dying man. With his thoughts running, his pulse was pounding, and blood rushing through his veins. Mr. Mac's brain did not comprehend that the form in front of him was sitting up, revealing a white enamel-colored beak, pushing its way through the exit wound of the darkly colored head. Like a chick struggling against the shell, it violently shook and pushed its way through, the hole making a loud crack as it successfully pushed its face through. The primary head began screeching as the other continued to force itself out, both sounds demanding Mr. Mac's attention. Horrified at the grotesque scene unfolding before him, he raised his gun and instinctively pulled the trigger, shooting both heads at the same time. To his surprise, the impact helped to separate the two, and the new wounds quickly sprouted beaks and began to violently shake as 2 more heads began to push their way through. Panicking, Mr. Mac aimed at the creature's chest, hoping to kill it by destroying its heart, and fired his 4th round. A head gladly intercepting the bullet and immediately split in half from the force of the fifth head growing out of it, spraying the dark liquid across the room and splattering Mr. Mac from head to toe. As he was wiping the blue liquid off his face, the creature positioned its legs with its toes pointed to the ceiling, and in one smooth, unnatural move, it rolled onto its heels to the balls of its feet and leaped towards its victim. Suddenly, Mr. Mac was sitting upright on his floor, separated from his weapon. He didn't see what happened. It was that fast, but he understood why he was on the floor.
It missed once, but if I stay here, I won't be so lucky again, he thought to himself, watching the monstrous creature slowly rising from the floor. I need to get on the other side of the bed and put some sort of space between us, he said silently. That should give me enough time to get out through the window.
Mr. Mac rose to one knee and positioned himself to jump onto his bed with the creature mirroring his movements. Filling his lungs to the brim with air, he exhaled and leaped from the floor, aiming for his bed, the creature jumping simultaneously and threw its body straight toward the spot Mr. Mac had just been. As he landed on the soft, cool blanket, Mr. Mac grabbed at it, feverishly reaching for the other side of the mattress. Just then, a sharp and deep, piercing pain was felt in Mr. Mac's calf.
Not now. Please don't start cramping.
Feeling a tug on the leg, he looked down to see one of the creature's beaks latching onto his calf and trying to pull him back down to the floor. Thinking quickly, he turned and began gouging at its beady eyes with his toes. Upon being wounded, the creature released his leg. Unfortunately, this action allowed the rest of the creature to bring itself to its knees. The creature took hold of Mr. Mac by the waist with long, translucent, bony arms. As frail as they looked, he could not break free from their grasp. Mr. Mac started kicking the creature and its abdomen as hard as he could. Because he had already hurt it, he knew it was possible to do it again. The creature started losing its grip, so it sent two beaked heads to attack, only to be swatted away by their would-be victim. Suddenly, Mr. Mac awoke in a panic, his arms flailing in the air as if he were drowning, and his legs moved as if he were kicking his way to freedom. Calm began to slowly settle over him, and when he finally settled down, he sat in his bed and looked at the clock. In glowing red numbers, the clock read 3:34 a.m. While rubbing his eyes, he felt a dull, uncomfortable feeling in his pelvis. Well, when nature calls, you got to answer. Making his way back to his room, he wondered what time it was. Sitting on his bed, Mr. Mac looked at the clock, and in glowing red numbers it read 3:33 a.m.